So, in this next section, we're going to start getting into why, even though there's all these promises and all these instructions not to fear, and even though God gives us all this sort of reassurance, why we still continue to fear and how to deal with that. The thing that I want to give you first is an awareness of the difference in our perspective on this life and God's, because I think it's really key to understand that we don't see this world the way he sees it. And so because of that, we're fearful. So the analogy that I want to give you, or the thought process that I want you to maybe take some time to chew over and pray about, I want you to imagine that the person you love most in the world, the person that you would die for, the person who is absolutely the center of your universe, I want you to imagine that they come to you and they ask you to do something that they really need, and it's something you are fully capable of and willing to do. So they come to you and say, please, I need help, I need this. And you're like, I can totally do that, and I will do that for you. Don't worry, I've got it. And in your mind, you know you've got it. You've got the resources it needs. You've got the talent or skill or that it needs. Whatever it is, you've got it handled. But it's going to take some time. So you say, don't worry about it. Tomorrow I'm going to go do this. Next day I'm going to go do that. This will be taken care of. Don't you worry about it. I've got it. And they say, thank you. And they walk away. Now you, in your mind, are going, I got this. Taken care of. But as soon as they walk away from you, they start fearing, really need this. What if they don't do it? What if they can't do it? What if they try to do it? And that gets in their way. What if they just said that they would do it, but they're actually not going to do it? How would you feel? How frustrating, how hurtful, how sad would it be to you knowing absolute confidence that you've got this handled and they are at home pacing because it might go wrong? And you know they don't need to fear. They don't need to waste that energy and that time. They don't need to have that anxiety. You have got this under control. That's where God is with us, literally all the time. We go to him. We ask him to handle something. We look at his word. It says he'll handle it. And then we walk away and we got to talk to our friend about it. And we got to talk to our family about it. And we got to try and make that happen. And we got to try and control that. And maybe if I do that, and maybe if I get that money, and maybe I'll handle. We don't take him at his word. He tells us he's going to handle it. He tells us he's going to make sure we have what we need. He tells us that he loves us. He tells us he's going to protect us. All of these things are promised, literally promised, indicatively promised in his word. And we say thank you, and then we walk away and doubt it. Now, I do it too, okay? So this isn't like you're a bad kid. We all do it. We might do it in different ways or over different things. As our faith grows, as our relationship grows with God, the more intimate we are with him, the fewer things can put us in that place, but we've all got them. We've all got weaknesses. We've all got doubt points, all of us. So I'm not being like, I've got it together and you should be like me. I have those issues. I don't have them as much as I used to. I used to literally live in depression and anxiety. The world was never okay with me until I was 28 years old. 29 years old. So I'm not unempathetic to that place. I get where it comes from. I know why we do it. I just want to encourage you that the reason he gives us all of these promises and all of this assurance is because from his perspective, it's totally taken care of and you don't need to worry about it. So why is it? Why is it that even though we have all of these promises and assurance from him, we still continue to fear? And for you personally, pause the video for a minute and ask yourself, what stands between you what fear, what thought, what obstacle, whatever it is, what stands between you and believing and trusting, like truly trusting that God's going to handle the things that you fear. So if you need to think about a specific problem that you have, or if you're dealing with anxiety or whatever, identify something that you're fearful of and ask yourself, what is it that keeps you fearful? Just to give you an example, for me, it was very, very hard to get pregnant. It was very hard to have children. My son, I call him my miracle baby. He was God's gift to me. I'm confident of that. The Holy Spirit has affirmed that for me. By myself, without intervention from him, I would not have had children. My body wouldn't have done it. So when my son arrived, he became so precious that the idea of losing him was inconceivable to me. And I had to go through a process with God of giving up control, knowing not only that my son is going to get hurt in the course of his life, but at some point he's going to die, and he may die before I do. I pray to this day that that does not happen. That's a totally selfish prayer. But for a long time, I lived in literal anxiety about it. If I thought about something happening to him, and I had a couple of experiences when he was very little, one where he walked away from a blink of an eye, literally turned to look at something in a store aisle for probably all of 2 or 3 seconds, turned back, and he was gone. And it was a big store, and it was a big mall, and I could not find him. Terrifying. I'm praying, please, Lord, let me find him. Let him be okay. Don't let anybody take him. Like, it was seriously one of the scariest moments in my life. So for me, it became very clear when he was very young that I had to mentally, emotionally, spiritually release him to God, because I was living in fear of something happening to him. And I knew that that wasn't going to be healthy for him, and it definitely wasn't healthy for me. And it was a process. It really was. But when it first started, the thing that I could see was that for me, the barrier was God seems to be so assured about, our eternal destiny, and he doesn't seem to mind letting people die or letting us experience loss because he has a bigger purpose for it. But I didn't value the purposes that would go that far. To me at that time, the pain was not worth whatever gain God thought he was going to achieve through allowing somebody to die. And even though I hadn't experienced a lot of loss in my life, I had experienced enough to understand the finality of it. And I had watched people, good, strong Christian people, go through desperate losses in their family and friends. So I knew, just being a Christian did not protect you from that. And I was scared of it. I didn't want God to ask that of me. However, the details of that pan out for you, because they'll be different for everybody. When you drill down into it, I think you'll find the foundational fear is that God doesn't have the same plan you do. And you're worried that either he won't take care of something, or that his idea of taking care of it will be very different to yours, and it'll be painful. Basically, he won't do what we want him to do, right? So I just want to point out to you, if we're going on the basis of what I said in the last video, that our sense of well-being, our sense of security isn't about the circumstances we're in, it's about how we feel about it, right? So the key to overcoming fear is trusting God's judgment more than your own. Because in every area of my life where I've had it proven to me how foolish I am, how I do not understand and I cannot control things. And I've had it proven to me that God not only is incredibly wise and thoughtful and present, but that he does have the power and the knowledge to handle things. Anything where I've had those two things proven to me, I'm not scared. That's the blatant truth. I'm not scared of those things. I know he's got it. I've seen him do it. So I'm not scared of it. When it happens, I'm like, he's totally going to take care of this. I've seen him do it before. I know he'll do it again. And I've even been able in those moments to give up on my boundaries. Like him taking care of it used to be he had to take care of it this way. Now I'm just like, whatever he does is going to be for the best. That's trusting God more than you trust yourself. And I'll be honest with you, the only way I got there was through a lot of very humbling experiences. God let me, in my enthusiasm and my ignorance, plow into situations and screw them up, and then hand them over to him and have him fix it for me and go, you are so much better at this than I am. And when you reach that point where you like tangibly see in your life him fixing things for you, you go, okay, you've got this. And like I said, that's not a fearful place to be. When you learn to trust his judgment more than your own, you will trust, first of all, and you will feel safe. And you will trust because you feel safe. But here's the kicker. And this is the barrier. I think if you look at this, you'll figure out that this is what it gets to. The only way to find trust with someone is to take a risk on them. Right? Sometimes we have to trust people with information. Sometimes we have to trust people to do things for us. Whatever the circumstances might be, it's always a risk. We're giving up something, either control or information or resources or whatever. We have to give that into somebody else's care and then watch what they do with it. And some people prove themselves to be not trustworthy. God is always trustworthy. But in order for you to feel safe in that, in order for you to trust that, you have to give him something to show you he can be trusted. And I think that this is the barrier for most women, especially, but the church in general, honestly. We want to stay safe. We want to stay comfortable. And giving up control of something is vulnerable because you're only vulnerable if you care about it. If you give up something you don't care about, that's not trusting. That's just letting somebody have something. If I don't care, it costs me nothing. So if you don't do anything good with it, it doesn't matter. It's only trust, and it can only be proven to you when it's valuable to you and it's a risk to give it up. So what I want to encourage you to do over the course of the next week is identify something that you are scared of losing, or someone you are scared of losing, or a circumstance that you're scared of where it will go. And I want you to consciously trust God with it. Now, let me tell you what trusting God with it looks like. You don't try to control it. Hands off. So you say, for example, I'll show you one of the ones that happened with me. When my husband and I got married, he was saved very, very young in his faith. And over the course of 2 or 3 years, I tried to be God's voice to him. You need to think about this. You need to do this. You need to thought that way. You need to pray. You need to not do that thing. And all it did was cause a great deal of conflict in our relationship. And about 3 years in, all we were doing was fighting. And I was going, God, why is this happening? I'm trying to do what you want me to do, and it's just creating problems. And he's like, because you're trying to do it. You're trying to make him something. You've got to trust him and his heart with me. And I was like, but he's not listening to you. Like, it's not that I don't think God wants to input into my husband's life. It's that I'm watching my husband at the time. and saying he's not listening. So if he's not listening, how can God have any influence in his life? Boy, was I wrong. But God and I had the conversation about it, went through it. And where I got to was I couldn't fix this. And I was desperately terrified of where it would go if I stopped giving my husband, quote unquote, godly advice, which was what I thought I was doing. Really, I was nagging, but I thought I was giving godly advice. I thought if I stopped reminding him that God's watching and he needs to be attentive to that, he's just going to let it go. He's just going to be a man of the world. And that really scared me because he's my husband and he leads our family. And if I'm supposed to go where he leads and he's leading in a direction that doesn't involve God, like that's scary. But I also recognized in that moment, I was kind of forced to take a risk on God because I had tried my way and it didn't work. So I said, okay. And I said, I'm literally not going to give him any spiritual advice at all unless he asks me. And I'm just going to pray. I'm just going to give him to you, God. And every time I see something, or every time I'm worried about something, or every time he seems to not be thinking about you, I'm going to ask you to deal with it with him. Because for me, because I was so controlling and so scared all the time, the only way that I could trust God with him was to be completely hands off. So it wasn't that I didn't care. It was that I just stopped trying to be God's voice to him. And very soon after that, I would say probably 6 to 8 weeks after I started doing that, we had a situation where he was pursuing a job that I just felt was not a good idea for us. And I felt confident that assurance was from God and that he was not even going to be willing to listen to that. And it scared me so bad. And I was like, Lord, you say that he's going to lead our family in the right direction and in your directions, and he's not listening to you. How, and I wanted to, I just wanted to go, no, but hands off. So I said, well, let's give it some thought. I did raise some concern because he said, what do you think? And I said, well, I got to be honest with you. I'm a little bit nervous about it for the XYZ reasons. Oh, yeah. But all he had was assurances for me. Oh, but that won't be a problem because of this. And that won't be a problem because of that. And so I just said, okay, well, let's just think about it. And I prayed. Oh, did I pray? I was so scared. We would have had to move all sorts of things. Anyway, I watched as he started coming home from work, having talked to people who were not Christians, or having read an article that talked about a specific issue that was a part of this job, or having watched a news story that, the economics of it, it touched on something that, God just brought to him what he needed to see the problems, even though he wasn't asking God. I was asking God, but he wasn't. He wasn't looking to God for advice on this. But God was intervening anyway. And what it showed me and humbled me was my idea of how to control these situations was so off base, just so off base. God is so much more capable of dealing with these things and in a way that is not generally in conflict. I never had to say to my husband, no, don't take that job. I never had to. He had over time, right? It was not like this momentary, it was input here, thought from someone here, information here, advice from this trusted person over here. It took days, weeks. But over the course of the process, he was turned from his original thought and plan to an entirely new direction that aligned with God. What I knew God was saying was good for our family. And I was just like, oh, I get it. Like, this is a God who has no limits. He has no boundaries. You don't have to be listening to him for him to speak to you. Like yes, we can quench the Holy Spirit. And my husband was. And yes, there's no doubt our relationship with him could be better if we were listening intentionally. But where it's important and where something does not follow God's plan and where our hearts are releasing it to the Lord, he will use anything and everything to get that to the right direction. We do not need to worry about it. He's got it. And that proved to me that I could trust God with submission to my husband. That when I was putting myself under my husband's authority, I wasn't putting it under my husband's authority. I was putting it under God's authority. And that where my husband would go wrong, God would make sure we were okay. Like it proved it to me. And I went, I get it now. And it's humbling because I'm looking back from that point on all these years when I've done it wrong and how much better it could have been and how much stronger my faith would have been. I'm disappointed in myself at that point, but God's like, good girl, you got it. You know, he's all celebrating over here going, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. Good job. And he's all approving and excited and delighted. And I'm just like, I'm a jerk. And then he's correcting me on that. Don't you push into the dirt the daughter that I love. And that was such a comfort to me. Anyway, I'm getting lost in the story now, but God has what you need. He's not limited in the ways that he can guide it. People don't have to be listening for him to have power. I don't want to pretend that sometimes his plans are different to ours. Sometimes when we release a person or a thing to him, things will happen that we don't want, that we wouldn't choose. But what we're going to talk about next time is the promises that he gives us to help with those situations. So for now, for today, I want to ask you to ask yourself, what can I do? What risk can I take, big or small, to cultivate my own trust in God? On what battlefield can I give him an opportunity to prove to me that he's trustworthy? So pick something. Start small if you need to. But I'm guessing as soon as I say that, something pops into your head. The biggest blessing would come from that being the thing that you choose. But look at your life and look at what scares you and ask yourself what you can, shaky and doubtful and scared, put into God's hands and watch what he does with it. Take your hands off, back away, and pray. Do nothing but pray and watch what he does, because you will be amazed. So that is my challenge to you for now. Give it a shot. Ask yourself what you can take a risk on and let him have it and see what happens. I'll talk to you soon.